Please stop.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2.
Welcome to Spoken Music Podcast. On today's episode, we're doing Revolver by the Beatles.
Cheers, man.
Cheers, man. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Spoken Music Podcast. As we said, today is Revolver by the Beatles, and I think we both like to say we're sorry it's been a while since we've caught up with you.
Mm-hmm. Been about 3 months now, so...
life's been busy, but we've given the album at least a few good listens, and we're ready to talk about it today, and we're gonna hopefully get back to weekly uploads.
Hopefully, yeah. I guess we can just start.
Yeah, let's just jump right into it.
So we're doing a pretty hefty band at this point now. Obviously, the Beatles. The name speaks for itself. You know, they're probably the most popular band of all time still. Maybe not in the actual popular
maybe not
scene right now, but
yeah, but their influence is unrivaled.
Exactly,
really.
Throughout everything today. And I guess today we picked Revolver because the Super Deluxe edition of the album came out in October of 2022. Unfortunately, it's 2023 now. We're really late to the ball and getting this rolling, but the Super Deluxe came out, and we listened to that a lot when it came out, and it was a really cool revamping of all the songs. So we decided to just do the album because of that release. So just to celebrate not only a great album, but another great mix of it being released. So I guess we can just start with our history of the band.
Yeah,
because I feel like everybody knows the Beatles. So the main four Beatles are John Lennon, Paul McCartney,
George Harrison,
and Ringo Starr. Ringo Starr on drums, George on guitar, John on guitar, and Paul on bass. For the most part, that was how it was for the Fab Four. And then from there they
experimented, and a few of them tried some other things. But,
especially on this album that we're going to take a look at here. So
definitely.
So what's your history with the Beatles?
So I, like most people, discovered the Beatles at a young age. When I was a small child, there was a record player in our house, and my mother and my grandmother, they owned particularly Paul McCartney. They were big fans of Paul McCartney, and they had some Paul McCartney and the Wings records. So that's how I first started hearing about the Beatles, and I'm pretty sure that the first Beatles song I heard was Let It Be.
Decent.
And I've had a lot of history with the big hits of the Beatles. I remember being a small child and watching their movie. Their one, I forget what the title of it was, but the one with the yellow submarine.
That's just Yellow Submarine.
Yellow Submarine. Yeah, they had it was kind of an acid trip, but it was also somehow targeted for children.
Yeah.
And I got very vivid memories of watching that as a kid, and those are among my first memories of the Beatles. I ended up diving into different kind of music genres as my main preference off the hop from a young age, but I did learn my knowledge of the Beatles pretty young.
Yeah.
How about you?
I'm in a similar boat. I learned about the Beatles when I was really young, obviously from their big hits and stuff like that. I remember I used to have a DSi, and my grandfather put a bunch of Beatles songs on that DSi so I could listen to it before I had an MP3 player or a phone or anything. This is a long time ago. But yeah, I listened to a lot of Beatles songs on there, knew the classics like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds off Sgt. Pepper, Ticket to Ride and stuff like that, Help, all the classics really. But it wasn't until later on when I was a teenager where I took a bigger dive into their catalog, starting with actually the one after this record, Sgt. Pepper. I started with that, and I listened to that almost non-stop for an entire summer. And that was the album that got me into the entire band. And from there, I went not only backwards, but also forwards into the White Album, Abbey Road, Let It Be, stuff like that. And just became an absolute huge fan. We also, our good friend Jordan, the third member of the 3G, he is a huge fan of the Beatles. So his input just helped me gain even more love for them. So it was really cool. But yeah, from then on, I've just been a huge fan of the Beatles. So it's really cool to be finally talking about Revolver and stuff like that.
Absolutely. All at various levels of the Beatles, for sure. I am the one who probably definitely knows them the least well out of our little group. And this has been, over the past few months, my first time actually sitting down and like listening to this record in full.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my first time actually listening to a Beatles record in full. And it's been definitely an interesting experience, especially at this kind of turning point in their career, to kind of see how things were going right on that echelon in between.
Mm-hmm. I have a question. Before we get into the actual track lists and stuff like that, I have a question. Do you think that this was a good start of a good start for you to listen to the Beatles? Like, do you think that this album's a little bit too much experimental compared to what you've heard like of their classic stuff? Do you think that this is a good starting point for somebody to this album in particular?
It'd be very tough to say. I think I would have to actually take a full listen to some of the other records to compare and contrast. There's definitely, before we get into it track by track, I'll say that there is some gems, and controversially, I think there is some duds on the album. But it's a very interesting mixture of both, and I at the very least see the direction they were going in.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see how this compares to some of their later works that I know, and how it also compares to some of their earlier works that I know. So it is a little bit of a Beatles variety pack, so to say.
Yeah. Now with your, I guess you have some memory of Paul McCartney for the most part.
Yeah, Paul McCartney is probably the Beatle I'm most closely associated to.
Do you think that any songs off this so far have kind of, went in a direction that is similar to what he ended up doing later on after the Beatles? Do you hear any similarities between those tracks and tracks you know by him?
Yeah, vaguely.
Yeah, really?
For sure. I think you can see some inspiration that he's taken from this period in time and continued that on into his solo career. Paul McCartney and the Wings.
Mm-hmm. I love the Wings too. I know I think 2 records by them front to back, and I'm a big fan of his stuff afterwards. Although I am a big fan of George Harrison and John Lennon stuff afterwards. I'm not too familiar with Ringo Starr's catalog after the Beatles, but the other 3, I'm huge fans of them even after the band.
Yeah, and I know a few, again, of each of the Beatles hits that they did outside of the Beatles, too. I know a number of Paul McCartney's, but I know a few of Lennon's and maybe 1 or 2 of Harrison's.
Yeah, My Sweet Lord, Harrison, stuff like that.
Absolutely iconic. They all were talented. They all were incredibly talented, whether it be as the supergroup or, like, on their own. They were very talented people.
Absolutely. Okay, you want to go into the track listing, I guess?
Yeah. Let's jump right into it. Let's start from the top.
Okay, so we took some notes. We literally just listened to this album maybe 30 minutes ago on the actual vinyl too. He finally got his vinyl experience of Revolver, and yeah. So I'll just let you start because we both took notes. So
absolutely.
Things you want to say?
All right. So the opening track to the record is Taxman. And Taxman, I find it to be very pleasant instrumentally. It's kind of like I was saying with the Beatles variety pack thing. It seems to like to ride that line a little nicely on. I'd actually say between like a popular sound and a more rocking sound. It's very cool. It's up tempo, and I really like the narrative that the song tells. It gets political, but it kind of gets political in a bit of a timeless way, where it talks about just generalized like government greed and imbalance in power and money.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it because it doesn't necessarily attack a side. It doesn't attack left or right politics. It doesn't necessarily say like there's some specific policy. And don't get me wrong, there's like activism in music where I like when they can get specific, but a song like Taxman feels very timeless because I feel like people in the UK in the 60s had their gripe with the tax man the same way that people in Canada in the 2020s can also have a gripe with the tax man. So I enjoy the song for its timeless element, for sure.
Cool. All right. And yeah, this is a George Harrison song too. So this is the first time where he got to star, like, be the first song on a Beatles album, which is really cool too. But yeah, like with everything you said, the song just has like a really groovy bass line throughout the entire thing. I love how the guitar and the snare kind of hit at the same time, with the boom ga boom boom ga boom ga. It's perfect, like that. I think that the solo in the song is really cool, which I didn't know for a long time that was Paul McCartney who's playing the actual guitar solo of the song. And yeah, I think that the song's got some pretty cool vocal harmonies, along with everything you just said. Nailed on the head.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And then the next song after Taxman, that goes into Eleanor Rigby. This is one of the most popular tracks by the Beatles. Yeah. I knew this as a kid.
One of the most iconic Beatles songs for sure.
Absolutely. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, one of my also personal favorite Beatles songs too. Very compelling vocal melody. Paul McCartney is just such a grade A vocalist, and the way that he sings such very intricate sounding melodies over something that's actually so simple is just very respectable. I was actually very surprised at how, in a sense, like, simplistic the structure of the song is, but it kind of tricks you into thinking that it's so grand with, like, the string arrangement kind of deal. It gives it this, like, big granular feel, but it's actually super simple. Mm-hmm. It's kind of one of the things that makes, like, Paul McCartney like a weapon in pop music. He's so good at it. Mm-hmm. He's just so good at it. Yeah, that's basically it on that song, in my thoughts.
Yeah, no, again, you got it really well. I will say that George Martin, the producer of all the Beatles albums, he is like the main guy behind the orchestra and stuff like that. The orchestra elements and stuff like that. Yeah, honestly, George Martin is sometimes considered the fifth Beatle, and it's for a very good reason. Like, he has his input, and it's so fantastic, especially on this song. I love just the vocal harmonies on this song throughout. With the especially with all the lonely people, like the actual lyric, all the lonely people. It sounds, like you said, so grand but so simple at the same time, but it just works so well. And his voice is so fragile.
Yeah, it's tight. Like, it's so nice.
Yeah, it's so tight, and the whole song is really fragile. The thing is that I think this song for me has become one of my lesser favorites, in the sense that there's so many others that I found later on that I preferred. But it's not to say anything against the song. I love the song just the same. It just might be one of my least favorites because there's so much here that I love.
A lot of good content. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. And then from there, it goes into I'm Only Sleeping, the John Lennon song.
That's right.
So what do you have to say about that?
Okay. So for I'm Only Sleeping, sorry, I don't mean to have my head in my phone, but I'm trying to make sure I get all my notes about this right. So interesting vocal harmonizing. I really like the vocal harmonies in this song, and I find it really interesting that, in my opinion, it's actually the bass that's really carrying the groove of the song. I really like the bass line in it. I think that's an interesting take on John Lennon's part on, like, depression, because it kind of seems like what that song is about, to my ears at least. Mm-hmm. I think it's very interesting to look at it from the viewpoint of somebody who's suffering with mental health issues, but on some level I find it a little bit hard to actually, like, hear things from his viewpoint.
I see.
So it's a bit of a conflicting song to me. There's aspects of it I like and aspects of it I don't like. It's an interesting one.
Very interesting. Okay. So with that, like, basically everything you said that you liked about it, I fully agree with. I think that most of the time the bass is what carries the song, with the acoustic.
Yeah, it's complementing it nicely, but that bass seems to be what's, like, bringing it forward.
Exactly, right? And so I think that the song is just structured extremely well, and the sound of it is extremely. This is one of the times where they're getting into the psychedelic kind of sound that they went for really heavy on the album, especially after this. But for me, I do can relate to that song very easily. Like everything that he says in that song lyrically, I can very much understand where he's coming from. I guess the point of view, and I see it in the sense too, is that it's his take on just depression of some kind, and just not wanting to, wanting to be left alone in your, I guess, misery kind of sort of thing,
100%.
right? But yeah, I totally jive with the actual lyrical meaning with the song. It's interesting that we're opposing on that, but that's cool though, right?
Yeah, it is.
I'm glad you like the certain elements of the song though, because it is definitely one of my favorites. Probably like my top 3 favorites of this record.
I can understand that.
I love how his vocals sound. They sound kind of strange, especially for the past Beatles albums before this.
Yeah, I almost wanted to say that it's like almost like there's an effect on it, but I know that there's not.
There might be.
He's just doing something very interesting.
Yeah,
with his voice.
I think there is maybe some kind of effect on it that just makes him sound a little bit more like, I don't know, it makes him sound kind of like a radio sometimes.
Kinda, yeah.
It's weird, but it's pretty cool. So, yeah, definitely one of my personal favorites. And then from I'm Only Sleeping goes on to Love You Too. That's a George Harrison song.
Yes.
So how do you feel about this song? Because this is the very Indian style song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is, in my opinion, one of the turning points on the record. For Love You Too, I respect the experimental angle the song is going for. Although in comparison to the songs before it on the track, it feels like a bit of a jarring contrast. So stylistically, it's like all of a sudden you're getting jarred with that contrast, but I think that, like, unfortunately what, like, really does this song in for me is that, the actual lyrical content seems a little uninspired. I feel like there was a lot of inspiration in the creativity of going for a different sound, and maybe perhaps more of that inspiration should have been used for the lyrical content. I feel like there's some pop songs where like their whole idea is like to not say too much, which I'll be getting into later because I think there's some songs in this that can do that, but for whatever reason it just comes across more effective with other songs. I think the fact that this song had the big jarring sound difference and it really sounded like it was trying to go for something, like it was trying to make a message but then to not say much, I feel like it hurt the song. It's one of my least favorite songs on the record. Okay.
I think that a lot of people can actually agree with you on that. Even Jordan doesn't love this song. This is one of my favorites.
Shit happens.
I think that the actual instrumental of the song is really cool. I do think that lyrically it seems a little bit just like simple, like there's not much, it doesn't seem like there's too much to it. But like the lyrics themselves are kind of psychedelic in the way that he's like, in the way that he phrases them, not only, but also just the way that his writing is. It's very like strange word patterns and stuff like that.
I'll give you that. Like.
Yeah.
His phrasing is good.
Yeah.
The way that he sings fits in with the experimental vibe.
Yeah.
I will give you that.
And I don't necessarily think that George was trying to make a statement of any kind. I just think that he, at this point, he went to, I think he'd already been to India and stuff like that, and just became extremely inspired by the culture. And there's another song off Sgt. Pepper, Within You, Without You, which is basically Love You Too to a grander scale. Like it's the same kind of instrumental type of elements, but in my opinion, even better. So for me, yeah, I think that this song has a great chorus in the sense it's so weird sounding, but I love how the instruments kind of like, I don't know what particular instrument it is that rises up when he's saying I'll Make Love to You, where it's like wow, wow. I really love how that sounds. That's one of my favorite elements of the song. I just think his voice is so good throughout the whole song. George is like probably my favorite Beatle too. So it's like this song just, I don't know. I really like that one, honestly.
I respect it.
But I understand, I guess, the lyrical part where it's like it seems simple, but I like it. But yeah, so that's pretty cool. I'm glad that you understand some elements of it.
For sure.
And then from Love You Too, that goes into Here, There, Everywhere, a Paul McCartney song.
That's right. And that's actually really interesting because this kind of does link into Love You Too, into what I was saying with that simplicity. Because it just, like I said, it felt like Love You Too was trying to say something that it just, for whatever reason, couldn't say. The way that, like, I interpreted it, at least. I think that's maybe why it left maybe not as good of a taste in my mouth about the whole thing. But in contrast to that, Here, There, Everywhere is also just a very simple song. Debatably the simplest song on the record. And it just does what it's supposed to do, in my opinion. It's just a very sweet love song. I don't think that Paul is saying anything insane. There's nothing too complicated about it, but it's just very real. It just feels like it's coming from a genuine place. And again, it just kind of goes to show like his tremendous vocal ability, because he's just singing with this level of emotion, sincerity, that it just sounds like it's resonating through him when he's singing it. There's not much to say about the song. It's just a very nice, pleasant, real sounding song. I like it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay. I think that this song has a lot to it, honestly. Like, especially lyrically. Like, this is one of my Paul McCartney peaks lyrically throughout probably like his entire career. And this is my opinion. That's why Beatles is so tough, is because everybody has contrasting opinions on it. 100%. Yeah. But this is like one of my top favorites of theirs. I think it has a great chord progression. I love the little small lead fills that go on that's kind of sound haunting sometimes. The do-do-do-do-do.
I agree.
Sounds like really kind of scary, yet the song always has that really peaceful kind of vibe to it. I think that the vocal harmonies and melodies are just on point in the song. Like
100%.
I've heard that this song was inspired by God Only Knows by the Beach Boys, which was like one of Paul McCartney's like favorite songs of all time, when it was released the same year as this album, actually, which is really cool to hear. Like, this was his take on inspiration from that song in that Pet Sounds album, which is one of my personal favorites. So yeah, for me, this is a really hard-hitting song. I love it. It's a great song.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think it's a great song too.
Cool. And then from Here, There, Everywhere, it goes into the classic Yellow Submarine. The extreme classic. This is like probably most people's first Beatles song. Definitely. Especially when you're a kid. Like, I remember hearing it in school, in gym class when I was like grade 2 or something like that.
Yeah, same boat. They played it at our school too.
Yeah. Because it's basically like a child, like, kind of melody, I guess. I don't know. It's like kind of like a lullaby.
Kind of, yeah. Like, yeah. That was. I don't know if ever like necessarily confirmed, but like that seems like the inspiration for the song for sure.
How do you like it?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite songs. Yeah, not only of the whole Beatles catalog, but one of my favorites off the record for sure. It's great, and I think one of the things that is just like overlooked a lot is Ringo's ability to sing. Ringo's vocal melody is actually like one of my favorite vocal melodies, again, of all the Beatles, let alone like just on this record. It's just very like clean and nice, and the pitch is good. Just he has a very pleasant sounding voice, and it's a very distinct voice. I know in the Beatles community, like, there's a lot of comparing, contrasting, mostly on John Lennon and Paul McCartney. But Ringo's over here doing his own little thing, and this is like one of the only songs he gets where he really gets a chance to like shine with those vocals. I think it's one of the highlights of the song. Ringo, you have a fantastic sounding voice, okay? I love the sound of your voice. The drum groove in the song is really cool too. I really like what the drums are doing and how it propels the song. I like almost everything about the song. It's funny, I have one nitpick about Yellow Submarine, and it doesn't really change the whole thing, but one of the things I actually dislike about the song is a lot of like the underlying vocals that are happening. Just because in my opinion it almost takes my ears away from how great the lead vocals are sounding. But yeah, like you know what I'm saying, like the brash, like on the Yellow Submarine, like everything that's going on underneath all that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's not a big deal. It's fine. I can live with it. I just think it distracts from how great the actual lead vocal line is.
Okay. Interesting. For me, I think that the song's just a nice ditty. You know, like I do like the song, but I'm not crazy about it. That's all I have to say about that. No, I do agree that I think Ringo's voice is really good on this song. I believe this is just a song Paul McCartney wrote for him to sing, and they just were like, okay, this is Ringo's song on the album. But it is a good one, right?
It is. 100%.
And honestly, from this point on, I would say that each Ringo song, his vocals not only, but like songs in general, I think they get even better. The one after this, do you know With a Little Help from My Friends?
Yep.
Great.
Fantastic.
Great song. There's a bunch of ones on the White Album, which I love, and then Abbey Road has Octopus's Garden. You know that one?
Yeah.
That's another amazing song, and I'm pretty sure he actually wrote that one. So yeah, literally from here, it just continues.
Goes up.
Yeah. Honestly, the album before this, Rubber Soul, has one of my least favorite Beatles songs, What Goes On, which is a Ringo song. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that song, but that's okay. That's a Ringo song. So I think that in turn, this one's a lot better in a lot of different ways. I actually really like the background vocal in the one section of the song in the chorus, the "We all live in a yellow," a little different from the actual lead melody that Ringo's doing. I do understand the craziness of all the other voices going on.
I believe it's Lennon's, especially like what Lennon's doing. He's going like really rowdy. It distracts me from what's going on.
I really like the soft melodies that go on with it, though.
That I like.
Yeah, and then I like the psychedelic like part where it's the spoken like kind of like captain talking to the.
I like that too. It gives it like the atmosphere. It gives the song a full atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's pretty cool to listen to this song as an adult, knowing it as a kid so well, and seeing it as such a like. A fun song, right? Like what you'd think is a kid song, but really it was on a Beatles album. It's pretty cool. But yeah, that's basically all I have to say about it. Love his voice.
Yeah, 100%.
So from Yellow Submarine, we go into She Said, She Said. Now, I'll take the lead on this one because I think this is the one that we were talking about yesterday, where we might have some contrasting opinions.
All right, Beatles fans, get ready. This is about to get spicy, okay?
Oh, no. Okay, so She Said is a contender for my personal favorite Beatles song of all time. Yes, that is a hot take, I'm sure, but I love everything about this song. I love the really cool guitar fills that Weezer ripped off on Holiday. I love the melody writing. This is a song that doesn't even have Paul McCartney on it, yet it has some of my favorite Beatles bass from, I believe George Harrison did the bass for it. The bass is always walking along through the song and doing all the cool runs that you'd honestly hear Paul McCartney do. I think that the guitar playing is cool, like I said, and yeah, just like all of the like elements of the song just fit perfectly together, and lyrically is one of my favorite, like some of my favorite John Lennon lyrics of all time, just because of how like weird and abstract and psychedelic they are, right? I'm pretty sure this is one of his songs that have to do with him being on acid, because this is when they started doing LSD and stuff like that, which is a big point of their career. Did my phone die? Well, the music's gone, guys.
Sorry about that.
But yeah, so I think that all the bass work is really cool and stuff like that. And especially the fade out at the end of the song. I think that the fade out at the end of the song where all of them are saying, I know what it's like to be dead. And it's kind of a call, like a call and return kind of thing. Where I know what it is to be sad and what it's like to be dead. Just fades out into that as if it's continuing to go on forever. It's so cool. Like, absolutely, this is one of my favorite songs. Easily my favorite song off Revolver, I'd say.
Wow.
Right.
All right, very interesting. Okay, so this is where we get different. Trust me, I take no joy in the fact that we are now at a crossroads where we have different opinions. But basically, I do agree with some of what you said. There are some interesting elements in the song.
Mm-hmm.
I love the leading guitar. I think that a lot of the lead fills that are happening and stuff are really cool. And the drums in particular, the way that those two are interacting with each other, I really like.
Yeah, I forgot to say that.
The walking bass actually didn't catch my ear as much. I'd have to maybe listen to it again.
Okay.
But that's okay. Oh snap! I lost where I was here. One quick second. But the main thing that I have a problem with this song here is I actually dislike John Lennon's lyrics.
Okay.
For me, he sounds very disconnected from the subject of the song and painfully self-centered. In an otherwise great song, the lyrics unfortunately ruin it for me. It seems like I had more. Where is it?
That's interesting.
Did I lose it? That's too bad. I had a little bit more.
Do you know any lyrics in particular that bother you a little bit?
Yeah, I do. Hold on a sec. I'm trying to see where I had it because I did have it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
If not, I could just do it off the cuff, but I friggin' worked hard when I wrote that down.
That's why it is nice to take notes before we do this, though, because we really get down what we want to say, and especially while listening to the album, that's usually how we do it.
Okay, now I can't seem to find what I wrote down, so I'll just kind of go off the cuff with it. Yeah, his lyrics just seem to show painful disconnect because the subject of the song is this girl, and this girl is trying to explain to him that there is some sort of misunderstanding. They're not able to understand each other, and John's just so dismissive and disconnected of the situation. He wants to just talk about how, when I was a kid, like, everything was cool, and what she's doing is she's crying out for help. When she says that she knows what it's like to be dead, like, these are all cries for help. Whatever kind of relationship this might be, whether they're friends, whether they're romantic, whatever, she's crying for help. And John just seems so painfully disconnected to the situation, or, like, unaware, essentially. The lyrics just bother me.
Okay, in that point, if you see the lyrics in that light, do you think that that's purposefully how John wrote the song, as if he is the disconnected one? Or do you just literally think that his writing's bad? In the sense that he's just like...
It's very hard to say. All I know is that, when I hear the song, it just screams to me that it's about just, like, an ignorant person.
Really? Very interesting. Okay, that's an interesting take. I've never really heard that before. You're wrong!
Oh!
No, I'm kidding. Okay, interesting take, man. Honestly, after this, I kind of want to, like, go through the song and, like, look through the lyrics with you and actually, like, dissect exactly where you see some of the points. Like, I guess I can, like, conceptualize what you're seeing, but I guess I just see the song in a different light, you know.
Yeah, we can do a deep dive on that. Maybe we can even do it on the podcast after this. We can pull up the lyrics.
That'd be cool.
If you want, yeah.
That would be cool. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I guess we can just go to the next one from here. So, after she said,
I think it gets a lot less controversial after here. Don't worry.
Okay, good.
I think we hit the controversial hump. I actually have one more controversial take, but it's gonna be another unexpected one. Don't worry.
Later on? Okay. So, at this point, you flip the record and it goes to Good Day Sunshine, which is a Paul McCartney song.
That's right.
How do you feel about this one?
Also a fan of it.
Nice.
I'm a fan of most things Paul McCartney. I would say that this is, I think, the most pop-centric sounding song on the record. Super poppy. Excellent vocal performance again from Paul. Again, there's not much, I'd say, substance too much lyrics-wise, but it's pleasant. It's nice. It's got a very full composition. Mm-hmm. It seems like most songs that are Paul songs just tend to be very filled out, very nicely filled out.
He was really good at that. Yeah.
100%.
He's always really good at making sure that the song is as grand as it can be, right? Using it to its full potential, kinda.
It's like the definition of a great pop-centric sounding song on the record.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this song has very sweet vocals from Paul. I remember one time when I listened to this album on record. I think it was the first time I listened to it on record. It really, for some reason, this song in particular brought me in, and it made me feel like I was really there in the room with the Beatles. It was a really like cool sound. I guess it was just the fact of listening to the record and stuff like that. It really feels like this is how it was this was meant to be, how it was heard. So yeah, I think that the vocals are really cool in this song. I really like the lyrics of the song. They're really cute, and I think that the piano solo is really cool.
Yeah, the piano solo is great.
The piano throughout the whole song is actually really good. I don't know if that's George Martin or somebody else, session player. Maybe one of the Beatles playing the piano. I'm not too sure.
Might be Paul. I think Paul can play the piano.
He can. I'm not sure if it is him, though. Great drumming throughout, too. And, again, this is another fade out that I really enjoy the song, where it does the good day sunshine and fades out into that. I'm a huge fan of fade out, so whenever something like that happens and it's kind of like different from the rest of the song, I think it's a really cool element. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. It's a damn good song.
Yeah, simple but sweet.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and then from Good Day Sunshine, it goes into And Your Bird Can Sing, a John Lennon, at least on vocal song. I believe he wrote it. He also despises this song.
Which is why we're going to get into hot take number 2 of the podcast.
Okay.
Get ready for it.
It's always John Lennon. All right.
And now this is going to be a better curveball. I bet you're not going to see this one coming.
Mm-hmm.
And Your Bird Can Sing. In my opinion, this is John's best song on the record. One of John's best songs. I actually absolutely love And Your Bird Can Sing. Sorry, John Lennon. You wrote a good song.
Cool.
Very compelling instrumentally and vocally, with lyrics that actually feel like they carry substance and inspiration. Using the singing bird and other metaphors for an obsession with the material world and material wealth, in contrast to John's general disposition on the material world, and questioning the fulfillment one can obtain by the singing bird metaphor.
Very cool. That's really cool. Okay, I can agree. I think that this song's really good. I don't think it's John Lennon's best. In fact, this might be a hot take. This is one of my least favorite off the album.
You agree with John?
I do genuinely think the song is great, though. I think that guitar lead is awesome.
100%.
And I think that all other elements, like especially his vocals and his lyrics and the melodies that go on when Paul jumps in too, man, it's so good.
Yeah, I would say their harmonies complement each other really good.
Oh yeah.
You can't have me. It's very
perfect.
good.
And I guess it would be the chorus when it's kind of the descending riff that goes into when your butt is broken. I love that. I love how that sounds.
100%.
Otherwise, not too much else I have to say. I think that the bass is cool in that song too, but really the bass is cool in every song.
Definitely.
Yeah, just an alright song to me. I think the guitar lead's really cool. I think the lyrics are cool, but it's nothing like it's too crazy.
And it was one of my standouts on the record, one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay. From And Your Bird Can Sing, it goes into For No One, another Paul song.
That's right.
And this is one of my personal favorites.
One of my personal favorites too. We're in agreement.
Cool. Awesome.
Incredible. I was going to say, yeah, one of Paul's better songs on the record. Love the use of the French horn. And the story of the song is tragic, and he has this poetic way of saying it too. And again, Paul's exceeding at having these really tight vocal melodies while still somehow conveying very intense emotion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's this great mix of poetry and music. I love it.
Yeah.
The instrumental, it's all very nice. The pacing is good, and I actually like the fact that it's not too long of a song either. I think it's just enough for you to really soak in the feeling, and then it's gone.
Yeah, this might be one of the shorter songs.
Just like the relationship, right?
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
I think that
I dig it.
I think that every song on the album really is really short, but yeah, this is definitely one of the even shorter ones. At least it feels that way.
It does.
This is probably again, when it relating to Here, There, and Everywhere, this is another one of my favorite Paul lyrics, possibly my favorite of all time. Paul lyrics, like
It's up there
like
for me too.
right, like you just said, like it's poetry with the music. It's you really get that sense that it's just such beautiful lyrics throughout, and the keyboards sound really good, especially on the deluxe edition that came out of this album. The keyboards are really there
more
this
present.
time. Yeah, and it's really nice to hear it like that. I think that the soft and soothing bass throughout the song really works too. And then yeah, this is another one of the peak choruses of this album for me. I think that this song is another one of my tops for sure. I think just every element's beautiful to it.
I think it might be top 3 for me too.
Nice, cool. So then, from For No One, it goes into Dr. Robert. That's right. Yeah, it's a John Lennon song.
So for Dr. Robert, I think it tells an interesting little story, and it's very tongue-in-cheek about the wild escapades into partying and just complete indulgence that the Beatles were getting into. Oh yeah, that's right. I believe there was an organ in that song. It sounds like it's an organ playing.
Yeah, I think so.
I thought that was a really interesting use of it. And again, one of the more full-sounding songs on there, and mixing a little bit of those pop elements with the rock elements.
Mm-hmm.
They made another kind of like just like almost fusion song in my opinion, and I think it's just very interesting to see how. Yeah, it was one of the first songs I can really think of that was kind of like in a sense a party song, really, of being like, hey, like let's get reckless and do drugs, but in a very tongue-in-cheek kind of way.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that this song has some pretty cool guitar and bass on it and stuff. Otherwise, it's like not one of my favorites. I think that some of the elements of like the bridge are really cool. The well, you're feeling fine. That's where you hear the organ too.
I think that sounds great.
The most. I think that that's probably my favorite part of the song. Otherwise, it's nothing else that I totally jumps into my ear as crazy.
Yeah, not one of my favorites, but
yeah, actually, when I first started listening to the Beatles and listened to this album, I liked the song more than I do now. But that's okay. I think that when Paul jumps in on the vocals anytime in the song, I think that it's really cool too. That's just usually how it is. Whenever Paul jumps in on a John harmony or something like that, it just always works. But yeah, in this song in particular, I always thought that this song was actually based on the story. Have you ever heard the story about their dentist before?
I think I might have maybe seen that in like some sort of other video on YouTube or something like that, but no, I don't know it well enough to.
George and John went to I think it was George's dentist, and they went to his house, and he gave them tea, but he laced the tea with LSD, and they had never done. Kind of screwed up, but they had never done LSD before, so they were with their wives, and they drank the tea, not knowing what was going to happen, and they left. They drove home. George drove them home.
Die.
Yeah, George drove them home on acid for their first time. He had no idea what was going on. Apparently, they got into an elevator and they thought that it was on fire and stuff like that. But I always thought that this song was kind of slightly based off that story. Although I'm not too sure if that's the actual case. But that's a kind of funny story, if it is, to go along with the song. So. Yeah, it's an okay song to me.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
No, probably, possibly my least favorite, but I'm fine with it. And then from Dr. Robert, again, it goes to a really peak for me. This is a George Harrison song, I Want to Tell You. What was our beginning of this podcast was I Want to Tell You's riff.
Yep.
So for me, this song is one of my favorite guitar riffs of their entire career, probably. It's up there with like Paperback Writer. I think that it's such a cool sounding riff. I love how his guitar tone is throughout the song too. I think that excuse me, very cool. Yeah, the piano stabs in this song too, because it's like the piano's a little bit in the sidelines of the
Kind
guitar.
of like subdued.
Yeah, a little bit, unlike some of the other songs on this album where it's a little bit more in the forefront. But with George Harrison's guitar playing and stuff like that, the song has an awesome chorus too.
I agree.
And the vocal harmonies, once again, you can basically say that about all these songs, but in particular, I love the vocal harmonies on this song. And again, George's voice just shines, right?
Yeah.
'Cause,
I think this might be his best vocal performance.
Yeah.
On the record, at least.
Yeah, I can honestly agree with that. I think so too. This is probably his best song on the album to me.
I was gonna say that I think that it is too. I'm in agreement with that.
So this is again another one of my favorites. Possibly my second favorite off of Revolver. Maybe third, I'm not sure. But yeah, and really cool lyrics, and love Ringo's drums in it too. I guess haven't said much about Ringo's drumming throughout the album, but throughout the entire thing, it's incredible.
It is.
It's some very interesting techniques. Yeah, exactly. I think that Ringo just continuously keeps bringing other cool concepts as their time goes by with their albums too. But this is some really cool stuff that Ringo's doing throughout all these songs. And
1,000,000%.
I guess especially for this song, I like them a lot.
Yeah, and you've basically touched on every note, honestly, I had about the song too. And I'm in agreement with you. I think that this is Harrison's best song on the record too.
Mm-hmm.
I love what he's doing with all the instrumentation. And I think the only other point that I had on this is one of the reasons why I like this song is it feels like the lyrics are more inspired in this song. Like, these are better lyrics fundamentally to me.
Mm-hmm.
I like where he's coming from in this song and what he's writing about, and it fits the instrumental perfectly. It doesn't feel like there's anything at all out of place. Great song.
I love the lyric. I wanted to tell you I feel hung up, but I don't know why. It's such a cool lyric.
Just so honest, so genuine.
Yeah. Everybody I think can relate to that. It's just so easy. So yeah, is that all you have to say about the song?
Yep.
Cool. All right. So from I Want to Tell You, it goes into Got to Get You Into My Life. That's a Paul McCartney song.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it? I
like it a lot. It's also a song where there's a lot of vocal harmony, and John's pretty present in the song too.
He is, yeah.
And they do sound great together. You were mentioning that earlier, and I agree. And I think this is one of the songs in particular where they sound fantastic together.
Mm-hmm.
And also, when I was listening to it just this time, I noticed that this song actually kind of seems like a sequel to me. It kind of seems like a sequel to Here, There, and Everywhere.
Okay.
They just thematically seem to follow kind of the exact same idea. And it's just the tempo is up more on this one, the arrangement is fuller, but the whole idea actually seems really the same. And I just think that that's kind of cool. It almost seems like you could have made it a part 1 and 2 song in a sense.
Pretty cool. I think I think that this song actually follows more of a actual instrumental. I can see where you're coming from with the Here, There, Everywhere thing. I think in actual instrumental, I think it follows more of a pop sound, Good Day Sunshine type thing.
Yeah, that's
very upbeat.
For sure.
This might be, in my opinion, the most pop-oriented song on the album.
That's also fair. 100%.
It's super upbeat, and it's super bouncy. The instrumental is really cool. This is some of my favorite Paul McCartney vocals too. Honestly, this song
Definitely.
On this last listen we just did here, this is one of my favorites. I honestly forgot how much I love this song. It's kind of funny. This song's about just marijuana. That's what the song is about.
It's Paul, right? And he got inspired by smoking weed.
Yeah, he just wanted to get pot into his life. That's what the song's actually about. But
although you can definitely believe it's about a lady.
Exactly, yeah. And I love how he does that, right? He kind of tricks you and tricks the listener. But that's the thing, is you can interpret it any way you want to, so that's really cool. Awesome guitar filled the climax, the doom ding 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 ding, when it all just the guitar randomly comes into. Throughout the song there's not much guitar. It's mostly that orchestral and the really bouncy bass and stuff like that. I really like this song. This was actually another one of my favorites. Yeah, super groovy bass. But yeah, and then from Got to Get You Into Life goes into the final track of the album, which is Tomorrow Never Knows. I want to hear your opinion on this song.
Yeah, okay, so Tomorrow Never Knows. Another more experimental song on the record, and the closing song. An excellent vocal performance by John. I think that not my favorite as far as like lyrical content goes. Like I said, that was in Your Bird Can Sing.
Mm-hmm.
But for his actual vocal abilities and his performance, this might be his best vocal performance on the record. Really impressive vocal lines.
I agree.
The drums are also very busy during this song. I really noticed that during that last listen. Ringo's going crazy.
Yeah.
It's a lot, and it's really cool, and it's one of my favorite parts of the song is how crazy those drums are, and the highlight, in my opinion. And then again, hot take, everything else just fails to connect with me. Like all the other instrumentation, the only way I can describe it is like it feels like a lot.
Yeah.
It feels like jumbled, like they were really trying to push a lot into a small space. And it feels like it ends in like a big old jumbled mess too. Like the ending just feels so like discombobulated. It almost seems like everything's like falling apart at the end.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it's supposed to be, though.
Which like that can be the intention, but it doesn't mean that I like it. I guess.
Okay.
That's kind of my problem with that. Is I don't like it, and I guess I suppose it thematically fits into the lyrical content of what John's writing about, but
throughout the whole album.
Not in Your Bird Can Sing.
Not in Your Bird Can Sing, but hey.
And that's just all it is. I guess I just have a hard time, honestly, relating to a lot of John's viewpoints, which is very interesting because he has songs like In Your Bird Can Sing and other stuff from his solo career, and I'm sure other stuff from other Beatles albums where I can relate to his perspective and what he's singing about. But I find on this album and the next album, there's a lot of stuff that John writes about from a perspective that I just can't seem to jive with or get into. And yeah, unfortunately, that's just how like this song ends. Unfortunately, like the album just it ends on a note where I just can't dig it.
Okay. I again am the polar opposite in this sense. This is one of the best songs, one of the best Beatles songs, one of the best songs. This song is extremely psychedelic, especially for the time. This was a turning point for just music in general. This was a really big step with all of the like sounds that are going on in the song that have to do with a bunch of studio tape loops that they did. They had some kind of like mechanism where they set it all up around a room to make it so that sound would come out. All those like weird sounds of like the birds and stuff like that, like the wheep, wheep. It sounds like birds at least. Lyrically, it's extremely cool. Very psychedelic though. This is obviously about probably one of his trips or something like that. But it describes very well. I think that I think all the phrasing is really cool in this song. I think that you're right about the drumming. Some of Ringo's coolest drumming on the album. Even though throughout the entire song, it's basically the same drums and the same bass line going.
It's just the pattern is so quick and it's so complicated.
Yeah,
He's really going.
And Paul's just doing like very simple bass throughout the entire thing, but it just gels together so well into this like sonic insanity, right? Like it's just a crazy mishmash of awesomeness. The first time I heard this song, I was shocked by it. I remember one of our friends said that it was their favorite Beatles song, and I was like, really? I have to check that one out. And I checked it out, and immediately I was hooked on it, especially because of those like really cool like bird sounds that go around. It sounds like the song sounds like you're slipping into some kind of unknown, right? It really feels like you can just sit back and just fall into the song.
Yeah, it's crazy. I just like it.
Yeah.
I hate the jumbledness of it. Like it just it bothers me.
Sure.
I don't. It's all distracting. I don't like it at all.
Okay. But that's okay, right? At least there's a lot of like highlights for you with this record.
Definitely. All in all, it's a good record. There really is only, I guess I would say, like 2 songs on this that I'd go as far as to say is I very much dislike.
Sure. And I also think that this song is just extremely like haunting, yet it's filled with a lot of energy, and I think that it just works so well. It doesn't for me it doesn't take it doesn't overstay its welcome, really. It's a quick song to get through and stuff like that. And not only is this a big like leap in music, but this was also a big leap for the Beatles because this was a peek into see what was to come for their career. Tomorrow Never Knows being the end of Revolver was the turning point into what would become the Beatles' psychedelic era. After this, they released, I think right after this, maybe a couple months after Revolver was released, they released Strawberry Fields Forever, which is like really out there, but in a sense, a little bit more formulaic with the actual pop song. This one's just crazy, right? Tomorrow Never Knows is pretty insane. But I love Tomorrow Never Knows, not only for just its sound, but because of its relevance in their career, what was about to come. It's such a cool way to end what was kind of the end of the Beatles, like, youthful era, like the Fab Four. Like, this album is basically the turning point into the next era of the Beatles, which would follow along with the rest of their career, right? So, yeah, for me, one of the best Beatles songs, and that's the final song off the record.
That's right.
That's right.
Track by track.
So, I guess in closing, what would you say about... Do you think that this album impelled you to look more into the Beatles' career after listening to it?
I think to an extent, yes.
Okay.
And I think that it's kind of funny when you talk about its movement into the future and stuff like that, because like it actually just compels me to like just learn more about their early career and stuff like that. I'm definitely a person who, yeah, I like the Beatles when they were more in their Fab Four phase, when they were more in that zone. I think
Beatlemania.
I like Beatlemania. And like I said, I'm a bit of a Paul bias anyways, and I think that this has also helped me reinforce that as I realized I really don't have much bad to say about any Paul song or anything that Paul does.
Yeah.
And I've realized that I'm very hit or miss on John. Because, yeah, like I said, Any Bird Can Sing actually is debatably my favorite song off the record, and I really love it. He also happens to have my least favorite song on the record, too. So it's
Which one is your least favorite? Tomorrow Never Knows?
It's a toss-up. It's either Tomorrow Never Knows or She Said, She Said.
Okay. My two favorites. Jackass.
Different takes. But yeah, right? So, but no, my point is, though, is that John Lennon is interesting for that I can both really resonate and really not resonate with him.
Yeah.
And I generally liked like George Harrison. Like I said, aside from maybe a little bit of lack of inspiration in some lyrics, and the one song, he does write some very compelling, interesting music arrangements. He's a great musician, good stuff.
Yeah.
Ringo, like I said, he shined. He was super overlooked for all the good that he contributed to this album, especially. I really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely check out more of the Beatles catalog. And it just, listening to this definitely made me aware that maybe I do have a little bit of a sneaky Paul bias I wasn't quite as aware of.
Yeah, maybe. I will rephrase what I said a little bit in the sense that, like, for Tomorrow Never Knows, like, yes, it was a step forward, but every single one of these tracks on this album were a step forward for every Beatle. Like, this is completely different than what they were doing in the Fab Four days.
Definitely.
With Help and Ticket to Ride, and Please Please Me, stuff like that, right? Like, this is a completely different ball game. Like, this is something completely else, and I just think that throughout afterwards, like, I will say to you, like, go backwards. If you really like the kind of, like, earlier stuff that they were doing, go backwards. If you like the psychedelic stuff, they don't do it for too long. I promise you that. It will always be, like, inspired in their music, but the White Album is a lot less psychedelic than Sgt. Pepper is. I'll say Sgt. Pepper is, like, that's their big one. And then Magical Mystery Tour is really psychedelic too. But then the White Album is the one where it becomes just them, right? It's all for them on their own, making their own stuff, right? It's a really cool album, and there's a lot of concepts on it. Honestly, one day you'll have to listen to White Album. That's my I think that's a hot take too. A lot of hot takes with the Beatles, but like
It's hard to avoid it with them.
Yeah, the White Album's my favorite Beatles album. Just because it's so much Beatles, right? I think a lot of people think there's too much to the White Album. It's a double album, but it's just all the Beatles you can get. There's still really cool psychedelic elements to it. Revolution 9's a crazy song.
I think you've heard that one.
Yeah, and then Abbey Road is their, like, that's what basically people consider their magnum opus
Yeah.
is Abbey Road. And if you haven't heard that one before, that's just a
Not
great
front to
rock
back,
record.
but I have heard a number of the tracks off it, 100%.
And yeah, honestly, it's cool that you know got to listen to a Beatles album finally. I do really recommend that one day we look at a different Beatles album too, because there could be Beatles albums that compel you more.
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say, and for all of you watching or listening to, please leave your Beatles hot takes in the comments below. Let us know all your controversial opinions on the Beatles. Let us know how much you hate us for our insane opinions on the Beatles.
Sage likes Oasis more than he likes the Beatles, guys.
That is true, I do. So yeah, you can have a comments war with me if you'd like. Please don't. Music is music. I love all music, and I'm sure you do too. But yeah, let us know any of your thoughts, opinions on the Beatles too. We'd love to hear it. And if you guys are super into it, like and comment. Let us know, because we are definitely opening to revisiting bands that we've done videos on. And I'm sure that we would definitely revisit the Beatles at some point later on too.
Yeah, I hope so.
Absolutely.
I really hope so. Another album I want you to listen to too is Pet Sounds.
Yep.
Pet Sounds is basically like, so they have the album before this, Rubber Soul, right? Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys heard Rubber Soul, fell in love with it, and was like, okay, now I have to like one up this. Like I have to, like the Beatles are on top. I have to do better. So he made Pet Sounds. Pet Sounds is super ambitious.
Yeah, then Pet Sounds made Radiohead, so
Shut up.
great.
He's not wrong, guys. But yeah, so it's really cool because Rubber Soul and Pet Sounds. We used to have a guitar teacher, Mr. Muldoon. If you're watching, good to see you. Miss you. He used to have, I remember him having Rubber Soul on record and Pet Sounds on record. And I guess it was because of the fact that those two albums kind of...
in a weird way, are like sidekick albums.
Yeah, kinda. And that's the thing, is that Pet Sounds inspired this heavily. Like, Paul McCartney heard Pet Sounds, so all of the songs off of... I think John did too. Basically, all the songs off of here that Paul wrote, he was at least a little bit inspired by Pet Sounds. Especially, like I said, God Only Knows, From Here, There, Everywhere, and stuff like that, right? So, it's really cool. That's another album I want you to hear, because that's an album that takes that kind of wall of sound noise. I think Tomorrow Never Knows is a little bit harsh on it, but with Pet Sounds, it's a wall of sound. But I'd like to see how your ears react to it a little bit.
I'd like to see it too.
Yeah, because it's just all basically just beautiful melodies throughout that entire album. It's just another good 60s album to hear. Same year as this, actually. But yeah, I guess we'll close it off here, and that was Revolver by the Beatles. So next time we get on, hopefully we won't take any big hiatuses anymore. We can't.
The plan is to come back next week, okay?
Yeah, the plan is to come back next week. And for next week, if there's anybody watching who wants to listen to the album before we listen to it, or before we review it and stuff like that.
Yeah, share your thoughts with us for sure.
That'll be Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusion 1. Okay? So we'll be doing Use Your Illusion 1, and then on another date, at some point, possibly after other podcasts.
We'll come back and revisit. It'll give us a reason to come back and revisit Do Use Your Illusion 2. And who knows, dig deeper into the catalog of Guns N' Roses. We're both huge fans of Guns N' Roses. We love the band, so we're definitely looking forward to jumping in on that.
Yeah.
And,
so even if we could even someday do like Chinese democracy. We're in the boat where we think Chinese democracy is actually like under.
What do we think?
What do we think?
You'll have to.
You basically heard what I said, but
you'll have to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know you want to see Guns N' Roses, and we'll get to it.
It'll be Guns N' Roses.
And yeah, expect Guns N' Roses next week, and again, comment, suggest if you want to hear more by the Beatles or more by any band. We're open to suggestions. We are taking them, and we're going to be doing a few that we've been giving over the next few weeks as well. So. Yeah, please share your thoughts, and I hope that you enjoyed the episode, and I hope that we keep this going on a more consistent basis moving forward.
Yeah, no more 3 months hiatus. But until next time, grab your drink, bud. Grab your drink, sir. Cheers.
See you on the next episode.